Dear grade 12 students, welcome. Today our presentation will be for English 219 Fiction. Before I'll proceed further, I would like to ask you to bring your textbook, pencil, pen, notebook, and even your dictionary because you might need it. And have yourself comfortably seated. Today, our objectives will be to identify the elements of a fiction, to relate the elements of fiction to a short story, to describe the characteristics and the characters of a story, to organize a set of events according to a story timeline. So first of all, I would like to ask you a question. What is fiction? When someone tells you, I'm reading a fiction story, what fiction means? Fiction is a story that is based on an imaginary event or people. So there is nothing real. It's not based on real people or facts. The whole thing is imaginary. The elements of a fiction. There are four main elements of a fiction, which is the plot, the characters, conflicts, and setting. And these elements are not only for fiction, they're also used for any other genres of writing. Now, any author or any writer who's trying to tackle and write a story that's accurate, he or she has to tackle these four elements through answering another four questions. So the questions usually are, what is the story? The line or the plot? Who are the main characters? What is their relationship? Where is the set, or where is it set? By answering these questions, he's actually even answering, he or she are answering the elements of a fiction. Now, what I want you to do, keeping in mind what we just said, note them down, do write them down. The four elements, the plot, the characteristics, the setting, the conflicts, and the four questions. Bearing that in mind, I want you to read this paragraph or this short story, and I want you to note down the important points because we will be referring to it in the upcoming slides. I'll give you about 3 minutes to read the slides or to read the story. Let's read it all together again. The Blunder and the King. Sometime long ago, in a far-away kingdom, there was once a wise king who was ready to stop being the king. So he ordered some workers to roll a large blunder onto the road that led through town. Then the king hid nearby and watched to see if anyone would move the huge rock from its place in the road. This person would become king. The first man to pass by was the city's wealthiest person. He bitterly complained that he was too rich to have a blunder in his way. He walked around the blunder. He shouted, "I must let the king know how angry I am." Soon, the town's smartest person came to the blunder in the road. She complained loudly that the king should do a better job of keeping the roads clear. Then she too walked around the blunder. Finally, a farmer came along, carrying a load of vegetables. As soon as he arrived at the blunder, he set down his vegetables and tried to move the rock. Other people might need to use this road, the farmer said to himself. If I can move it, then I should do so. After much hard work, the farmer finally succeeded in rolling the blunder off the road. He then noticed a hole where the blunder had been. Inside the hole was a box. The farmer opened the box to find the king's crown and a note. The note read, "For your hard work and for caring about others, you are now the king." Now, after reading the story, remember the 4 elements of the fiction. Let's start by analyzing the setting. So, what is a setting? A setting is usually a set of time. So we're referring to a time and a place. For any short story or for any story in general, usually it's in the beginning of the story. But there are certain stories or there are different stories in which the timeline keeps changing. So the reader, he or she, while reading, has to be careful to follow the setting in order to follow the timeline. Let's see and find out where the setting was in The Bounder and the King. Now, let's analyze the elements of the story together. So, the first element that we're going to talk about is the setting. When we say the setting, we mainly refer to the time and the place. For every story or event or a film that you're watching, there is a setting. Usually, the setting comes in the beginning of the story. But for certain books or certain novels, the sequence of the setting changes along with the time. So, when we're talking about a setting, the reader has to be very careful to follow the sequence of the time because the author might change it. But in the short stories, it's usually mentioned in the beginning. So, getting back to our story, which was The Blunder and the King, let me ask you, what was the setting of the story? It was in the very beginning. What is the setting of The Blunder and the King? The time and the place. Think and note it down. I'll give you 30 seconds to do that.